In this presentation, we will be examining the effects of runoff from farms on water quality and certain trade-offs that are associated with choosing one over the other.
Stream water quality is determined by 7 different tests. These tests are temperature, pH, dissolved oxygen, fecal coliform, total suspended solids, turbidity, and nutrients. Most importantly are the nutrients, nitrogen and phosphorus, which have major impacts on the bay. These nutrients can impact the bay by creating dead zones with little or no oxygen and also create algal blooms. These effects can have devastating impacts on the various industries relying on the health of the bay. These drastic effects will also hurt seafood, recreational, and residential industries. The initiative to restore stream quality began in 1985. This started with the Food Security Act of 1985, where it stated that farm area wetlands should be converted into non-wetland areas. This would be done in effort to reduce nutrient runoff and prevent further soil erosion. CREP was put into place in 1986 by the United States Department of Agriculture and helped farmers manage wetland area. In 1988, the Chesapeake Bay Act was created, whereby the Chesapeake Bay and all its tributaries are to be protected. Since then, other efforts have been put into place to offer incentives to farmers to turn their wetland areas into non-wetland areas and be compensated for it. The most popular method of preventing agricultural runoff is to implement riparian buffers. Riparian buffers may consist of native grasses, hard and soft woods, etc. These buffers help filter out nitrogen and phosphorus in animal manure. These buffers also help prevent soil erosion. There are many organizations dedicated to the furthering of this project. Most notably of these is the CREP program in Maryland, where farmers are offered money to create their own riparian buffers. The CREP program, or Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program, can extend from 10 to 15 years to compensate farmers on a yearly basis. The converted areas use differing flora to help maximize plant uptake of nutrients while also using plant roots to help keep soil in place. After being implemented for over 15 years, the program has begun to show large decreases in phosphorus, nitrogen, and soil erosion.
A significant increase in the concentration of animals on farms has greatly increased the risk of manure running off into tributaries of the Susquehanna River, which leads back to the bay. Figure 2.1 shows how the number of animals per farm has increased over time. In Figure 2.2, the largest amounts of nitrogen entering the bay can be seen coming from areas rich in agriculture and from urban areas. Cows, hogs, and poultry are currently in densities 5 to 100 times greater than in the 1950s, producing much more manure in the same amount of space. Many farmers sell their manure to be used as fertilizer. However, it is not economical to transport the manure more than a few miles to surrounding farms. Much more manure is being produced than can be used as fertilizer. Animal manure contains only slightly more nitrogen than phosphorus. Most crops require much more nitrogen than phosphorus, so when using manure as a fertilizer, excess phosphorus is spread and runs off into surrounding waterways. In 2003, livestock in the Bay watershed were estimated to produce 88 billion pounds of manure per year, generating nearly 600 million pounds of nitrogen. This is more than triple the nitrogen from waste produced by the 16 million people living in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. Animal manure is the largest source of nitrogen and phosphorus being placed on lands in the Bay watershed. Manure is accountable for 40% of nitrogen and 54% of phosphorus deposited on land. Nitrogen and phosphorus are two of the major pollutants in the bay and contribute to eutrophication. Eutrophication occurs when excess nutrients, particularly nitrogen and phosphorus, enter the bay and cause large algae blooms. When the algae die, they decompose and suck nearly all of the oxygen out of the water. These areas of the bay are referred to as dead zones because organisms cannot survive in the oxygen-deficient water. Additionally, the algae blooms block out sunlight from reaching submerged aquatic vegetation, also known as SAV, that grows underwater. SAV is vital to multiple bay species because it provides cover for young developing organisms, such as blue crabs, and it is also a food source for seasonal visitors to the bay, such as the canvasback duck. The largest dead zones in the Chesapeake can stretch for over 100 miles at certain times. Dead zones reduce the area of the Chesapeake Bay that can support life, and as a result, reduce the yields of seafood that can be harvested from the bay. They can even cause large fish kills to occur. Manure runoff from livestock poses additional threats to health beyond high levels of nitrogen and phosphorus. It can introduce harmful bacteria such as E. coli to water systems. The majority of rivers that are impaired in Virginia and the Delmarva Peninsula are the result of fecal contamination. Manure can also contain substances that are administered to animals. These substances include trace metals like arsenic that can be found in animal feed, hormones that can cause reproductive defects in fish, and antibiotics that may alter microbial processes essential to healthy ecosystems. Despite the high levels of pollution from livestock, farms and the animals that are raised on them are important in providing high quantities of food at low prices. This enables people living in the U.S. to always have meat available and to be able to afford eating it frequently.
According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's 2008 publication, the commercial seafood industry in Maryland and Virginia contributed $2 billion in sales, $1 billion in income, and more than 41,000 jobs. A study by the Chesapeake Bay Foundation found that fishing, tourism, property, and shipping activities estimated the value of the bay to Maryland and Virginia to be $678 billion in 1989. If you factor in inflation prices and increase in demand, as a panel of experts did for the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, it would place the value of the bay over $1 trillion. Recreation and commercial fishing alone brought in $1.3 billion in 2004, and sports fishing in Virginia is a vital part of the Bay economy so that it employs 15,000 people and grosses over $2 billion annually. The three main aquatic species that contribute to the economical function of the Bay Mid-Atlantic region is the Maryland blue crab, the oyster, and the striped bass, or commonly known as the rockfish. The pollution of runoff by the bay and poor water quality threatens the sources of income for these watermen. About one-third of the nation's blue crab supply comes from commercial crabbing in the Chesapeake Bay, according to OnTheBrink.com. The annual harvest of blue crabs totals about 55 million pounds, valued at $70 million right from the dock. Also, having a large, healthy supply of crabs, the recreational crabber is more inclined to try his luck. The expenses from recreational crabbing boost the local economies and local businesses. The Chesapeake Bay Foundation states the crab population, although being helped through some government restrictions and bay restoration programs, have increased, yet the crab population can't keep up with the amount of fishing. The state of Maryland and Virginia have applied strict crabbing regulations and have implemented a license buyback plan, which offers $15,000 for any commercial crabbing license. This loss of population of the Maryland blue crab has created several lost jobs and careers for multiple watermen. In the early years of oyster harvesting, the industry employed thousands of people involved in every aspect of the business. The industry generated millions of dollars a year for the Bay economy. Although the oysters act as natural filters, with high amounts of pollution and low amounts of oxygen, the oysters struggle to filter the water and are more susceptible to disease. The Chesapeake Bay Foundation reports that one oyster filters 50 gallons of water a day, and the reefs provide vital habitat for the other bay creatures. Maryland Department of Natural Resources reported in the last 30 years the decline of the bay oyster has meant a loss of more than $4 billion to Maryland and Virginia. They also go on to say that the decline in the oyster industry, the oyster houses went from 157 in 1970 to about 6 today. A study by the University of Maryland states that the oyster population is down. Rockfish have been the biggest economic draw out of any other creature in the bay. It consistently stays the most popular commercial fish available. It generates over $50 million in profit per year. The population has suffered from low oxygen levels, poor habitat, and overfishing, which has caused the government to impose a moratorium in 1989. Even though the population has successfully rebounded, the pollution levels are still affecting the habitat of the most popular fish of the bay. The public affected by polluted waters can cause diseases and ailments, resulting in lost wages and money spent on medical care. Concerning property values, the Environmental Protection Agency of the United States study indicated that clean water can increase the value of a single-family home on the water's edge by 25%. And that drinking water, if the bay was cleaner, there would be less of a need for water treatment plants. Investing in upgrading individual septic systems, according to the Maryland Department of Environment, would generate about 12,000 new jobs in 1 year.